here to talk about Frozen. No, just kidding.
I haven't seen Frozen. I haven't seen Frozen. I wouldn't be able to help you very much.
The mature Frozen, but that's a completely different movie altogether.
And I suspect not animated.
It might not be animated. And we're live right here on the Spoiler Room. It is November. Welcome all. Hope you've enjoyed our episodes so far. Thank you for listening to our returning listeners and our new listeners. Welcome to the Spoiler Room. And today we are kicking off our November special theme month, kind of like we did a while back with all sci-fi films. This month, thanks to fellow Spoiler Room crew member Jason Zolliger's suggestion, we're doing mature animated films in November. So it's animated November for us in the Spoiler Room. And tonight I've got a crew that is going to help us talk about the first one on our list, which is Heavy Metal from 1981. And first up in the list is Dawn. Hello, Dawn. How are you?
I am surprisingly well. Thank you.
Good to hear. Getting on the mend, are you?
I am, finally.
Fantastic. Good to hear. And then next to Dawn is the one and only BFD himself, Glenn Bittner's back in the Spoiler Room. Hello, Glenn. How are you?
Hi.
Oh, yeah. He's got his special voice on. Going to be an interesting evening. And next to him, returning to us, the Bowtie Ferret, Paul Salzer. Hello, Paul.
Hi, guys. How is everyone?
Oh, we're doing good, doing better now, and I'm sure we'll do better in the days to come. And tonight, we are talking about Heavy Metal, the 1981 animated film given to us by, surprisingly, I forgot all about that it was John Landis, who was involved in this project that is basically, it is based off of, if you're ever familiar, especially if you grew up in the 80s, the more mature, I guess you could almost call it an art magazine.
Yes.
More so than a mature art magazine in the form of Heavy Metal. And they did a movie of it, which was an anthology of short films similar to the way the magazine was. And so we're going to talk about this film tonight. Now, I want to start off with Dawn. Dawn, what do you think of Heavy Metal when you first saw it? Yes.
Oh my goodness! When I first saw it, I was in 7th grade and entirely, well, probably too young to see it. Some of the kids at school had been talking about it, and I was flipping through the channels and saw it on HBO. I'm like, oh, that's what! Oh my God! Even at the time, I loved it. I was impressed. I mean, it's not Disney. I couldn't believe there was so much violence and sex and in a cartoon. I mean, that's a cartoon. That's for kids. That's how I got my parents to let me watch it, because it was a cartoon. They said, "Oh, you're watching a cartoon. We're gonna go play cards in the other room."
Little did they know.
Little did they know. I loved it. The music really, I think, was the big thing at the time.
Oh, yeah.
I guarantee I did not understand a bunch of what was going on in that film, but the music, I loved that. That's what I remember from my first viewing.
Yeah, the soundtrack, they promoted the heck out of it, too, if I remember correctly, when it came out. And I have it right here, actually. And a little bit more of the story, folks, is we get the story of a glowing orb that appears, and it terrorizes this girl by showing short stories, all done in various artistic forms that in an anthology-type format. So there you go, a little bit more.
Look at me. I am the sum of all evil.
You do that very well.
You do that well, Glenn. And do you remember when you first watched this film? How did you react to it?
Well, there's a double story there. I remember the first time I wanted to watch it, my parents were actually watching it.
Oh, really?
It was the first time they have ever not let me watch a movie. It was dubbed inappropriate for me. Because, I mean, this was like shortly at right, maybe within a year of it coming out. So, I was 10.
Yeah.
Not even, I think it was probably like 9 or 10, right around there. But, we had Cinemax, so I saw it less than a year later. And I remember just loving it immediately. And, I mean, I won't lie, I was, at that point, 11 going on 12 or whatever it was, and a boy, so I'm like, ooh, cartoon boobs. That counts. But I also just loved the action and the stories and even some of the humor. Mm-hmm. And just, it plays on a lot of different themes that I love. You've got sci-fi, you've got fantasy, you've got, horror, and it's all kind of mishmashed together, which is great.
Well, and that's what like the stories are in the magazine, and it still are to this day. They were a couple years ago when I went to the Madison Comic-Con. They actually had a booth down there. I didn't realize they were still producing it, though.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But they aren't doing as many issues as they used to. And I bought a couple of issues, and it was still in the similar tone and vein, that mashup of genres mixed together. The fantasy, horror, sci-fi all kind of mixed together depending on the story you see, and all in mature material, and all just the art is crazy. Some of it's just beautifully done, and some of it looks like sketches, and I think this film captures that as well visually. So in that style. So yeah, it's definitely not meant for young ones, though I think we've all watched it younger than we should have been when we saw this. How about you, Paul, when you first saw this?
I actually was not young when I first saw this. I was much more mature.
You're no fun.
I know. I'm sorry about that, but I used to watch different types of movies growing up, not these type of films.
Boy, we just got put into that category. I'm
sorry. Yeah, I'm an elitist. Yes. But when I did watch it, though, it did bring me back to a time where I was kind of a coming of age type of thing, kind of discovering what it was like for a teenage version of me becoming more an adult. And it really does remind me of my roommates, because when the first time I had roommates outside of college, we had this kind of a lifestyle. We played cards at night. We did a little bit of drinking, and that was my first time actually leaving home. And this movie kind of makes me feel like that time period, especially with the music and the art and the themes. Now, we didn't have sex and we didn't go into violence when I was with my roommates, but it's that freedom of discovering who I was. So it's, even though I watched it much later in life, I think it takes me back to a time where I could have said, yeah, it was me when I was younger, but it wouldn't be true.
Well, it came out in 81, so let's see, it was August of 81, so I had just turned 6, so I didn't, I don't think I saw this till it was on cable a couple of years later. No, and my dad had the beta, that's right. He had the beta of it, and yeah, I remember this film and the art, and it was one of those things too where I didn't quite understand it, but boobs, so cartoon boobs. I didn't quite get the stories. I thought it was odd, weird, but also visually fascinating, especially the style of artwork, the way this is drawn, because back then, I mean, it's all hand drawn, I do believe. I mean, hand drawn, and there's a little bit of stop motion in here as well, isn't there? Glenn, have you did you notice, or Dawn? Sorry, either one.
There's some rotoscope in here.
Yeah,
which is one. Yeah, there's rotoscope in, but I don't think there's any stop motion.
Maybe that's what I was interpreting as the stop motion was rotoscope.
Oh yeah, it's the rotoscope.
Yeah, the car and the
Ralph Bakshi go-to.
Yeah, that standard animated Lord of the Rings style.
Yeah, that was the one with the zombies and the airplane.
Yes. Yeah.
That was done in rotoscope, and some of some of the bit with Tarna was also done in rotoscope.
Mhm.
But I remember noticing how different that section with the zombies, what was it, the B-17 bomber or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember how different that looked, and that was because it was in rotoscope.
Yeah, it does look different than the other ones, and the opening is different than pretty much the rest of the movie, the way it's drawn as well. So I like that because that's just the way the magazine is, the different styles in the magazine. Some of them are, hand drawn specifically. Other ones are a little bit more like paintings. It's really actually a cool magazine. When I was younger, yes, motivated by other things, I read it when I could, sneak a copy. But when I got older and looked at it, it's a great way for artists who do comic strips. It was a way for them to do other more mature material, I thought, because they had some big names in there, if I remember correctly, back in the day that would do art for them that was completely different than what guys that used to do drawings for Cracked and that, if I remember correctly.
Well, there are so many people in comics who have stuff published in heavy metal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and here this was really influenced by it, and I thought it really caught the spirit of that magazine. Now, what also surprised me now watching it for the show was the actual people that were involved in the voice acting for this, because, again, when I was younger, I didn't really notice these things, but you got a number of, Second City people in this?
Yeah.
SCTV.
Or ST, yep. yeah. That John Candy, Eugene Levy, Joe Flattery are in here with multiple voices, and I totally forgot that they were in here. John Candy really does a number of voices.
Oh yeah.
Including the Den segment, because
I love that segment.
You stupid bitch! It's my Lochnar.
Oh God, so many great moments and lines in this film. Paul, what'd you think of the voice acting in this film overall? How'd you think it was, considering many of these were kind of comedians, actually?
I thought they were great because they were, listening to it for the show. Again, I noticed John Candy, of course, but because of how many times he was in it, he surprised me. He was a really good voice actor for this thing, and I noticed Harold Ramis as well, and everyone, it just seemed like they fit the roles for the characters, and I did really enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, it's great. Again, just kind of like artists who would do art they normally wouldn't do in their profession in the magazine. Here we have voice artists or actors doing work they might not have normally done in their career in this film. So I guess there's kind of a parallel there.
Great artistic expression.
Yes, artistic expression. And I always like seeing artists do something different, even if it's good or bad. I do like to see them try to do something different rather than always play the same role or always do the same movie, because sometimes they surprise you in it. And sometimes you're like, no, you better stick with what you've got. Like, I'm looking at you, Vince Vaughn. Anyway, so there are many segments in here. I do have the names of them here. We've got the Harry Canyon one, which is the noir futuristic one. That's the first story we're presented to outside of the intro to the wraparound. And then there's Den, which is a superhero type story. You got Stern, which is a anti-hero type story.
Stern!
B-17, which is more of the horror line. And the So Beautiful and So Dangerous, which is kind of their comical stoner comedy. And then Tarna, which they seem to put the biggest amount of work in, which is your sci-fi fantasy film. So I want to ask the group here, we'll go down the line, which, if you had one to pick, would be your favorite story out of them? Glenn sighs. I'll give you a minute to think about it. We'll start with Paul. Paul, what segment for you
B-17, which is the one with the zombies, of course. But coming in very close second is the rapper segment, which is called Grimaldi. Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, with the young girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that wraparound really makes you, and this is and this is a spoiler room, folks, makes you kind of wonder the actual motivation of the glowing green orb at the end. And we'll get to that in a little bit. But what was it about the B-17 besides the fact that it was just horror that you liked about it? Did you enjoy, was it the story, animation? What was it about it that you kind of enjoyed?
The pacing. The pacing was a really neat type of. It moved along. It gave you a sense of eeriness too, because prior to it, a lot of the segments were kind of comical. In a way, I mean, they had some jokingness, and I mean, it did come right after the Captain Stern one, which I thought was just a hilarious thing. So that switch of emotion was really a neat thing for me. Plus, I like the ending because it made you think like, oh, they're not going to show me what's going to happen. I'm just going to have to imagine what's going to happen. Oh boy.
Well, that was one of those too where the stories actually kind of ran into each other. Mm-hmm. A little more than the other ones, which were more done where you had the break and you kept coming back to the green orb terrorizing the little girl. So
there was supposed to be another segment in there called Neverwhere Land, but it didn't make it for some reason.
Really?
Yeah, there was in between the Captain Stern and the B-17 segment. There was one called Neverwhere Land, and for some reason it didn't make it, and they put it in like the anniversary edition or something, with different music. But originally it was going to have it had different music. I think it was going to have Pink Floyd music in it at one point. So
geez. Yeah, that would have been a bit.
It would have been very interesting, right? So
that would have really been interesting in it. And yeah, most of it is a rock soundtrack, though. It was interesting to see Elmer Bernstein's name on this for doing some of the really cool instrumental stuff that you mentioned, the music again, because that is kind of a central point in here as well. Glenn, how about you? Give you a little time to think about it. If you had to pick one or so, which one of the segments?
Can I do a Mark the Movie Man version of picking one?
Sure, go ahead. Whatever you want.
Probably my favorite, the one that I like the most. Mm-hmm. My favorite one, as far as the story, I think is Harry Canyon.
Yeah, the New York story.
I like the whole kind of it's future kind of noir gangstery. I love that. My favorite one, just based on the one I enjoyed the most, is Den, because as a D&D player growing up, I mean, that's the dream of every kid that played D&D was like to be transported to this world where you are the actual freaking hero. And then the one that I quote the most is Captain Stern.
Oh, yes.
Because I mean, with my friends, I mean, aside from the whole, I'm Dan. Aside from that, it's just, I'll just, someone does something wrong and I'll just go, Stern! Dang, that's too good for him. That's too good for him. He should be ripped up into little bitty pieces and buried alive. So I love everything in this one. There's not a single story where I'm like, I don't care about that. I mean, so beautiful, so dangerous. It's probably the one that is just kind of there. It doesn't really do a lot for the overall story, but it's a nice little break before you get into the longer segment, which is Tarna, which I also love.
It's okay if you love them all, Glenn. If you love them all equally, that's fine. It's okay. That means that they're all good.
I love the fact that Ulatek is Cthulhu backwards.
Yes. There's so many references and stuff that they put in here. So much work was put into this film. You think about the animation, the way they did it, too, is just it's crazy. Thinking how they would try to do that nowadays, it'd probably be a lot more CG. And they actually did do the Heavy Metal 2000 film. But we're talking about the Heavy Metal 1981 one. Dawn, how about you? If you had to pick a favorite segment, which one did you like, or did you love them all equally?
I've watched this movie a lot over the years. And I am going to fall back on the one that I've liked most consistently over the years. I like them all. I've enjoyed all of the shorts. But I'm going to fall back on Tarna because even when I was young and growing up through it, that's always been my favorite part. All of the bits of all of the shorts have the same, even though they're all very different.
Mm-hmm.
All of the shorts have that same feeling of appealing to. I want to say it's not really coming of age, but I'm not sure how else to describe it. Somebody just starting out in life and seeing that the world is not the place that they thought it was or they hoped it would be. Somebody just starting out on their own, and how every person deals with that differently. Some people allow the world to devour them, as happens in some of the shorts, such as B-17 or to an extent Harry Canyon. Mm-hmm. And some of the shorts, sometimes people survive, indeed thrive in the world, like happens in Den, where he just completely, yeah, sure, that's power, that's evil. I'm just happy. I'm happy because I'm alive. And then in Tarna, where she actually has to, it's a constant battle, and it's just about surviving, and that's all you can do. And I think that went a little somewhere I didn't intend it to go.
No, that's okay. That's just fine. Yeah, they each have kind of a similar theme except for Tarna, and I can see why. And again, too, you could kind of see why they put the work into Tarna, especially because that is kind of the bookend for the story. And, it also kind of shows what that purpose of that green orb might have been, which, I want to dive into a couple of these because while watching them, I realized that this film must have definitely had an influence on later projects that we've seen. Glenn, Harry Canyon, you watch that? Tell me you're not thinking Fifth Element.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Of course, absolutely.
I was watching this again, and like I said, now with a little bit more experienced eyes, and I'm sitting there watching this going, holy crap, this is Fifth Element. From the girl just appearing in this cab to the type of character he is to,
the mugger.
Yeah, the mugger.
Yeah.
Give me the cash, and I dug that though. I'm watching it going, wow, I can see that influence. Or Dawn, for you, I wanted to mention, since you mentioned Tarna, the outfit that Tarna wears, would you say could have influenced Aeon Flux later on?
Definitely.
Yeah, with how
definitely
impractical it was. Actually, a lot of Aeon Flux from the defunct MTV Liquid Television, you watch that does have a heavy metal feel to it, I thought. A little more bizarre, but some of the stuff in heavy metal was pretty bizarre.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff in heavy metal was pretty bizarre.
It still is. So, but watching her character, I'm like watching it going, wow, she had to have influenced Aeon Flux. Were there any other references possibly you saw, Don, because you've watched a lot of films since then? Any other influences you might see that where it could have influenced a different film later on?
Gosh. And of course, now that you're asking me, I'm drawing a blank.
Oh.
And I'm sure I'll think about it.
Sure.
Or I'll
Well,
think of
the
something.
flying Corvette in the beginning is obviously what influenced Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because that's, he's got his flying car as well. Obviously, that was taken from heavy metal. Everything is copied. Everything. Every movie ever made since 1982.
Thanks, Glenn. You're
Harry Canyon, when Harry met Sally. I mean, it's got a Harry, it's got a woman in it. That's obviously taken from that.
That.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm
Captain Stern.
realizing how
obviously goes
punny
to Captain
that.
Ron.
I'm realizing how punny that name is.
Yes. Thank you, Glenn. Your point has been made. Okay. I just noticed similarities and thought maybe this might have been influences for it.
Oh, there definitely.
Definitely.
Hey, Paul, did you get with Captain Stern? Do you get kind of almost like a Space Ace vibe with that one?
I got more of Zach Brannigan or whatever.
Oh, there you go. Sure.
Yeah.
So that's it. But yes, Space Ace would actually be another one that I could easily see.
I watched it going, I'm like, wow, this needs to be one of those early stand-up animated video games, the ones that read off Laserdisc, that when you made the choice, its screen go blank and then you'd lose another quarter and you'd like, damn it.
I would have loved to play Tarna as a like a RPG.
I bet
that would be awesome.
I bet you would. We know. Okay, Paul.
Well, the flying bird scenes were amazing. Come on.
The flying bird scenes were amazing in that. Yeah, the animation,
especially for that time period. My goodness.
Well, yeah, that's what blew me away with the animation in it, is that you're thinking, sitting there going, this isn't really computer enhanced at all. This is all hand drawn stuff.
Yep.
Even the So Beautiful and So Dangerous segment, that spaceship that they fly was painted, I would think. Did that look painted, Glenn? Because that one didn't seem drawn. The ship didn't itself in some of the shots.
In which?
In the Stoner one.
I don't remember.
Oh,
The Stoner one.
the Stoner one.
I don't know. I know that
looked like a big floating eyeball.
Man. I know
Yeah.
that.
And there's a reference to the USS Enterprise in there.
There it is.
Yes,
There
the
is.
saucer flew by, which I
With
love.
all the other debris.
Oh yeah. So
Nosedive.
Oh yeah.
Nosedive. Oh my, yeah. The cocaine. The cocaine. They have this folks in the segment So Dangerous and So Beautiful, which has a lot of each segment, I think, pretty much some kind of nudity. But this one, they've got this machine that they put basically cocaine equivalent on the floor.
Plutonian Nyborg.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's cocaine. Anyway, and they're aliens with large noses, so
Why
they
not?
sniff it all off the floor. And I'm thinking, that's not really sanitary. I mean, people were walking there. When you gonna sniff up something other than your drug? What the hell?
Sniff up that girl's underpants.
No. There's some great Easter eggs in this. I mean, you've got Robbie the Robot,
Mm-hmm.
who is a hot dog vendor in Harry Canyon. I'm trying to think. There's some other ones too. Obviously, yeah. There's the Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
There was another one. I can't remember now. I'm completely blanking on it.
Let's see.
They had some cool, interesting little graffiti though, like Martians are people
Yeah.
too. I love that. And the Stoned Aliens, the spaceship that is made of 2 ever-ready batteries, is the way it was actually designed.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's got so many little nuances and things to it. It just, you watch it today and you go, this is more than just a movie trying to show boobies in animated. It's they're trying to do some art here, and they're doing some really cool, fun stories. Which did have some humor, and some got a little bit dark.
Amazing themes, like how to handle evil. Especially like the Tarna having to you confront the evil directly, and then that's how you become the hero.
Right. Or you have Den, who he is the hero, but he rejects the power in order to fly off on a gigantic insect with the topless victim of the
a lot of D&D sessions end that way.
Yeah.
Damsel in distress. The damsel in distress.
Yes, a lot of D&D sessions ended that way, with the topless damsel in distress riding off on an insect with the hero.
But there's also something that is people who have never read issues of heavy metal, and don't get me wrong, there is plenty of TNA in heavy metal.
Oh yeah.
But if you look beyond just that, there are a lot of stories in heavy metal. While the women will be portrayed as like Tarna is, but she's a kick-ass hero.
Yes.
And there's nothing, while she may be, her appearance is sexualized, she doesn't actually do anything sex-related. And there's a lot of stuff in heavy metal that is like that, where you have sexualized appearance, but it's not... It's partly it's the art style of a lot of these guys. You have a lot of the people who did a lot of stuff for heavy metal they're big followers of like Frazetta and Boris Vallejo, where it's just always been this. They're very much on the human form, which is why it's always topless women and guys in nothing but a loincloth, because that's just that school of art. But it's something that is, if you just gloss over it, it can be easily dismissed as nothing but eye candy stuff, which, again, a lot of it is.
Yeah.
But if you look at a lot of stuff, you actually get some good stories that have strong female characters, which for a 1981 film, I mean, obviously you have, not all of them are strong, because as we have, Insect Woman, who gets taken away. Nothing really strong about her.
No, but you do have the you have the in the stoner one, the girl is actually not fighter strong, but her personality's rather strong.
Jewish wedding.
Jewish wedding. But her personality is strong in that one. She's not exactly just I've been I've just had sex with a robot. She's all talking about, well, I don't know if I want to get married. I do have a boyfriend. I mean, she doesn't just give into these guys right away. So yeah, you're right. There are a number of strong characters, and especially for 1981, that was interesting to be portrayed, especially in something that was animated. So which just adds that extra level of intrigue to these characters, I think, because they're just. These artists, some of these characters just have the weirdest shapes to them. And, I love that. I'm big on visuals, and I think that's just awesome how there's something to see in every frame is the way they work it. And the story with the glowing orb. So I've got a question that I want to ask you guys. Glenn, I'll ask you first, get your opinion and see if the rest of the group agrees. But so... the Ball of Evil, could it be considered that the Ball of Evil's actual purpose isn't to be evil, but is to learn or initiate the newest Guardian, so it's not actually evil? Or is it really evil? Because at the end, the way this ends, it almost gives the impression that, because the story he's portraying is the same one that ends up destroying him and causing the Guardian to become the Guardian. So I was just kind of wanted to get your take on the ending, if you think that's it, or is it something different, or
I think it is evil.
Mm-hmm.
But it's part of a cycle. Is evil exists, and evil exists partly for good to defeat it.
Okay.
And it's just this repeating cycle of the Lochnar shows up, chaos ensues, a hero arises and defeats the Lochnar, but eventually the Lochnar will be back.
Right. It's ever present.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Don, on that? Would you say that the Lochnar was true evil then, or did it have intentions of good, of actually initiating the girl, or is that a side effect of just the side effect of what happens? What were your kind of takes on the ending?
Oh, I definitely thought the Lochnar was evil.
Mm-hmm.
The essence of evil.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that its ability to influence the people or creatures that it encountered was based on the evil already within them, or the capacity for evil in each person or creature that encountered it. So somebody who really was pure and good, or wasn't seeking power, it had much less influence over, versus the greedy people,
Sure.
like in the Harry Canyon, were far more influenced by it.
And since
But definitely,
it was definitely,
and since the little girl was more pure,
mm-hmm.
yeah, it definitely unlocked that reincarnation.
So we've got a little bit of Matrix going on. Sorry, didn't mean to put that out there, but because as Glenn said, everything has already been influenced and done. But
well, I mean, especially when you figure like a lot of the stuff from the Tarna sequence, the art was done by Mobius,
right?
Who worked on Alien and Tron and The Fifth Element and Star Wars Episode 5 and I think on Dune, the Jodorowsky's Dune. Just so, I mean, he worked on a lot of stuff. He even tried to sue Luc Besson for copyright infringement for Fifth Element.
Oh, did he really?
Because he did a long running series called Lincal, I think it was called, or Incal or something like that. Which there are definite similarities. He lost the case, but there are similarities between that and Fifth Element, and I think it's definitely obvious that there are similarities taken from this movie, and that could partly just be because of his work on both things.
Yeah, that could be. I loved his work, especially with Tarna. Is just he's really got a really cool imagination. And yeah, it really sparks other people's imagination. How about you, Paul? The ending, how'd you interpret it? Is the green ball true evil, or is he just the part of the Matrix that is to initiate the new Guardian?
To me, the Lochnar was basically the ultimate plot device. It was whatever every one of the segments needed it to be. So if you needed something that would explain certain things to happen, it was there. If you needed something that was like the God in the machine type of thing, where they couldn't figure out how to solve the problem at the end, it was there to solve the problem at the end. It just vaporized whatever it was at the end. It was whatever it needed to be. So every segment, it was its own little entity, but it was connected in a way. In that aspect, so in the last segment, the Tarna section, I think I would agree with you. It was more of a resetting type of thing. It was a self-fulfilling type of thing. It needed, like a balancing force in the universe. It needed to set things in motion to basically, without Tarna, it couldn't survive, so it needed to kind of initiate the girl, reincarnate her, so that it could be brought back again. just in that segment. So
Sure. Kind of be reborn again and become fresh because the ball of evil has kind of gotten a little dirty and old.
right.
Especially with all the nudity going about, he got real dirty. No, just kidding. Because I just thought it was kind of interesting how that segment, the last ending, goes together. Because he basically tells his story of his own demise, and then he blows up, and then she's the new guardian, and the new flying beast comes by, and she hops on. And, yay! And
they're so cute.
Again, they are so cute.
Flying pigeons that they are.
The flying badass pigeons that they are in that last segment with her. They get beat the crap and gets an arrow in its.
But if it was a little bit faster, the ending story would have been a lot different because it wouldn't be Tarna the Avenger. It would be Tarna the Defender, like she was supposed to be, but she took like 10 minutes to get to where she needed to be, and she took this long swim to get her uniform and stuff like that. Had she not done that, I think it would have been a much different segment.
I did have that thought of she's got her calling, so what does she do? She walks into the lake, she casually swims across the lake, she essentially puts on her garb.
That's her armor, man.
Her armor. And I'm just thinking, no, these guys called you because they're like, hey, we got someone just breaking down our door. Could you get here? She's like, I got to get this on and this on. So then,
I think it was intended to be ritualistic.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that it fits then with her being an Avenger versus a Defender. But yeah, Paul's right. If she took longer, maybe she would be the Defender. But that's not her purpose, as they mentioned. She's actually to avenge, to take care of it after the destruction happened. So that's why she took her time, and she had to do the ritual so she could get the sword and be.
That's not what the guys thought. I mean, they were praying. No. They were thinking, "Oh, we're going to be saved by." Oh,
yeah. But we prayed she's going to pop up at our door, and it's like, no, she's to get. After you guys die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of her role. Sorry, guys.
So always read the fine print.
So she could take care of the big green ball and then meet the guy in the white room where he says this has happened many times before. You're a flaw in the matrix, and we know. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. You watch this film and you just see all these bits and references that you could apply to stuff afterwards. And when I see films like this, it makes me wonder, how much it may have influenced it. And it's, common themes. I understand it's all been done before, but it's kind of fun to wonder if the artists at all were influenced by a film like this, because this is really a well-known and interesting film that's known by a lot of people, especially artist type folks, animators. So I could see it influencing them, maybe not even them knowing it, because it's such an unusual film for the style and everything. And it's awesome. It's awesome to watch. I watched it again, even though the animation is hand-drawn. I watched it and I'm like, wow, why haven't I watched this more? I just totally dig in this film. And that soundtrack, I've got the rockin' soundtrack here. Black Sabbath, Blue Oyster Cult, Cheap Trick, Devo, with that great ending cover of Working in a Coal Mine, Stevie Nicks, Don Felder.
Isn't Journey's
on here with
Grand Funk Railroad, Sammy Hagar.
I believe Journey's during the Harry Canyon.
It is.
Yes, it is.
It is.
Yeah.
Giving her the stars and stripes forever.
I actually made a note of that in my notes about his line of, I don't know what she wanted, but I gave her the stars and stripes forever. And I'm like, wow. Yes.
That brings up an interesting question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
I was just wondering what you guys thought of it. Do you think that if this wasn't based on the Heavy Metal magazine, there would be less exposition going on in the film? Because it just seemed like that was part of the trying to make it more like the magazine.
I don't know. Maybe not. I think you might not have the I don't know. It's hard to say, because I mean, you don't the only ones where you really get lots of exposition are the Harry Canyon one, but I think that's more just because of the style. It's kind of done in that noir style,
does too.
where you have Sam Spade is always talking in his head. Other than that, I think Den does it too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Dawn, what about you? You think the exposition would be there even if it wasn't based off of the magazine?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that it would be.
It reminded me back then, especially those 80s anthology shows that you had, where you did get exposition, usually voice over before, at the beginning and end of the story, not normally during it, but that was kind of common because...
You mean like the Tales of the Crypt? Or
Tales of the Crypt, the Hitcher...
Things like that.
The Hitcher, man, were there a lot actually in the 80s, early 90s. I just thinking about it now. They brought Alfred Hitchcock Presents back. He had amazing stories, monsters, The Hitcher, Tales from the Crypt, Tales from the Dark Side. You had all of those, and many of those had that kind of setup because...
Yeah, I think it was the style at the time, the popular device at the time.
Right. It was a storytelling mode. It's kind of... like they're reading you a bedtime story, almost. And that's what I got with this. I think even if it wasn't based off of heavy metal, I think you probably would have had that given the trend and the style of many similar things back then. Me personally, I think you still would have probably had that exposition. I think more so if it was, since it's based off of heavy metal, I don't think you'd have the soundtrack you do. With this, in all honesty, I think part of the soundtrack was influenced because it was based off of, not that the music has anything to do with magazine, but just the title heavy metal, and I think the bands that they got too with it, because I remember some of these, I think Journey's Open Arms, some of these were played on Top 40 for a while when it came out.
I remember when I first saw this, thinking, "Oh, heavy metal! It must be about heavy metal music." And just because you'd mentioned that the music really doesn't have anything to do with the magazine,
Right.
but yeah, I know that some of my fellow students at the time, it was popular on HBO and Cinemax, thought the same thing because we were young and we knew everything.
Yeah, Dawn, do you have a favorite from the soundtrack as far as songs go? One
Not
that sticks out for you? No? How about you, Glenn? Anything from the soundtrack that sticks out for you as one of your favorite songs at all? Or it's a great soundtrack.
It really
Heavy
is.
Metal Poisoning.
Heavy metal.
Which one is it? It's isn't that
The Don Felder one, Taking a Ride? Or?
I can't remember now. I'm terrible with song names, so...
Oh, sure. Which one was it during this segment?
I'm trying to remember. Shit, I don't remember. It's been too long.
Sure. No, that's okay. I was wondering at all, because the soundtrack is kind of a big thing in it, so... But
let me think. Or no, I'm thinking of a completely different song. I'm thinking of maybe I'm thinking of Taking a Ride.
Taking a Ride, yeah, that's the Don Felder one. That's the one that they open with, I think, is Take a Ride. With Take a Ride with Heavy Metal.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the one I'm thinking of a completely different one. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, that's my horrible rendition of it, but yes, that's there's so many great songs on there.
There's so many good ones. I mean, Crazy.
Yeah.
From Nazareth.
Paul, what about you? Did you have a favorite?
I do. It's the Devo song, but Taking a Ride was in the B17 segment.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
yes.
That's right, yeah.
I'm sorry.
The opening one is Heavy
Radar
Metal.
or something.
Oh, that's
Radar
right.
Rider.
Radar Rider. That's
Radar
right.
Rider.
Yeah, it's hard picking a favorite on this one because it's so good.
Mine is
Yeah.
Devo's, though. Devo's working in a coal mine. Love that song.
That cover of Working in a Coal Mine. Yeah.
I always thought the movie started with that, but it surprised me that it was on the end.
And actually, that I think shows up in one other soundtrack later on. I think it's Casino.
Oh,
I'd have to look, but I think Devo also has that same cover in Casino. Don't quote me on it, though. I'd have to look it up. But for me, I actually like Blue Oyster Cult's Veteran of the Psychic Wars.
nice.
I really like that one quite a bit. I'm not sure why. I mean, I like them all. I listen to this soundtrack. It used to be for a while regular rotation in my car before I got a USB stick player.
Oh.
I used to have this soundtrack almost constantly, just pop it in and just hit random because every song on there is just really good and really fitting for the movie with the heavy metal name. So I think we're going to wrap it up tonight. I just want to thank our group here for joining me and talking about this. I hope this piqued your interest in this film and hopefully maybe lets you go and seek it out. I do believe it is on it is on Amazon for a few bucks, or you can get many copies out there. It is on DVD and such. So check it out. And now this is the part where we have people go down and let you know where you can find them at when they aren't here. Dawn, go ahead.
You can find me in theaudience.net.
Awesome. And Glenn?
You can find me at guyinabunker.com, on YouTube, Guy in a Bunker Productions, or just follow me on Twitter at guyinabunker.
Awesome. And Paul?
Forsaken Film Reviews is where you can find me.
Awesome. And we want to thank our one viewer who's popped in and out, Pepper Scar Productions, Mr. Randy Lee Beasley. He's got a new film that's going to be hitting the festival scene soon called Detect Evil. And I actually have a review of that film coming soon on the channel. So thank you, Pepper Scar Productions, for popping in our channel and listen to us talk about Heavy Metal 1981. Stay tuned, folks. All November, we are doing our animated November mature animated films. Next week, I believe Wizards is on deck. And then before Thanksgiving, I scheduled it like that on purpose. Watership Down. So prepare yourself, folks. It's going to be a fun month. Please subscribe to us on iTunes and on the Twitter at Movie Maniac 3D or Spoiler Podcast, Spoiler Room PDCS. We are on the Twits there and on iTunes. As always, rate and comment us. It always helps us out. So we appreciate everyone. Thank you for listening. Now say good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.
And everyone.
Good night, everyone.
Nosedive.